I built an empire that never missed a call, except the one that mattered most. The hallway outside the ICU smelled like antiseptic and something colder, something final, and I stood there in a tailored suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent, staring at a door I couldn't walk through. Not yet. Not until I understood how everything had unraveled in less than 2 hours. My phone felt heavier than usual in my hand, like it knew what I'd done, like it remembered every vibration I ignored, every moment I chose silence over responsibility, and when I finally looked down, the screen still burned with her name. Emily, soft, familiar, the only thing in my life that had ever felt real without a price tag attached. 12 missed calls. 12 chances to be a husband instead of a man who controlled everything but himself. I closed my eyes and for a second I could still hear it, the faint echo of the ringtone cutting through low music and quiet laughter, the way it kept insisting, patient, persistent, like she believed I would answer eventually, like she trusted me. I didn't. I remember glancing at the screen, seeing her name, feeling something tighten in my chest, and then pushing it away because there was always something more urgent, always another deal, another distraction, another person telling me I deserved a break from the life I built. The city stretched beneath the penthouse windows that night, all lights and movement and power, and I let it convince me I had time, that whatever she needed could wait a few minutes, that she would understand like she always did. Emily was good at understanding. Too good. That was part of the problem. She forgave things before I even asked. She believed in a version of me I hadn't lived up to in years. And somewhere between the 3rd and the 12th call, while her name kept lighting up my screen, something inside me made a choice I can't undo. I silenced the phone. Just like that. One swipe. One decision. The room felt quieter after, like I had shut out more than just a sound, like I had closed a door I didn't even realize she was standing behind. And now I'm here, staring at another door, one I'm afraid to open, because on the other side is everything I failed to protect. Everything I promised I never would let break. A nurse passed by without meeting my eyes, her steps quick, practiced, like she'd seen men like me before, men who arrived too late with money in their pockets and regret in their hands. I looked down again, thumb hovering over the last voicemail she left, the one I haven't had the courage to play, because some part of me already knows what I'll hear. Not anger, not accusation, just her voice, soft and steady, saying my name like it still meant something. And that's the worst part. She didn't know she was calling a man who wouldn't answer. I pressed play before I could change my mind, and her voice filled the silence like it always did, soft but steady, the kind of voice that never demanded attention, yet somehow held all of mine when I allowed it to. And for a second I forgot where I was, forgot the cold hallway, and the closed door, and the weight pressing against my chest. Adrian, she said, and there was a breath after my name, a pause that felt longer than it should have, like she was trying to steady herself, like she did not want to sound afraid. I swallowed hard, my fingers tightening around the phone, because I knew that pause. I knew what it meant when she chose calm instead of panic. It meant things were already worse than she was willing to admit. I think something is wrong, she continued, her voice quieter now, and I could hear something in the background, not loud, just distant, like the world moving around her while she stood still inside it. I cannot feel the baby the way I did this morning. My chest tightened so sharply I had to lean back against the wall, the words cutting deeper because she did not accuse me, did not ask where I was, did not demand anything at all. She just told me what was happening like she believed I would come, like she trusted that I would not let her face it alone. There was another pause, longer this time, and I heard her take a breath that did not sound right, uneven, controlled, like she was trying not to lose it completely. I am driving to the hospital, she said, and I could picture it so clearly it made my vision blur. Her hands on the steering wheel, her shoulders tense, the way she always checked the mirrors twice even when there was no one behind her, careful in ways I never was. If you get this, just meet me there, okay? She tried to sound normal at the end, like it was a small thing, like it was not the kind of moment that changes everything. And then the message cut off. No goodbye, no second chance to say more. I lowered the phone slowly, my reflection staring back at me from the black screen. A man who had built his life on control and timing and precision. A man who never let anything slip through his hands. Except this, except her. The hallway felt smaller now, the air heavier, And somewhere behind that door machines were keeping time with a life I almost missed entirely. I thought about the way she said, "Meet me there." Not "come save me." Not "where are you?" Just "meet me." As if we were still equals in something I had already broken. As if she had not spent the last 12 calls reaching for someone who chose not to be reached. My throat tightened, and for the first time in years I did not have an answer. Not for her, not for myself, not for the silence that followed her voice and stayed with me even after the message ended. I looked down at my phone again, at the empty space where her name should have been lighting up, and the absence felt louder than any call I had ignored. The doctor finally stepped out, and everything inside me went still in a way that felt unnatural, like the world had paused just to hear what he was about to say, and I realized I was holding my breath without remembering when I stopped breathing in the first place. His eyes found mine with the kind of careful distance people use when they already know the outcome matters more than the explanation, and I hated that look because I had seen it before, just never directed at me, never when it was my life on the other side of the door. "She is stable," he said first. And the word stable should have felt like relief, but it did not. It felt incomplete, like a sentence missing the part that actually mattered, and my chest tightened as I waited for the rest. There were complications when she arrived. The impact caused stress we could not predict. He chose each word like it had weight, like he was trying to place them gently, but nothing about this felt gentle anymore. "The baby is alive," he continued, and for a second something inside me broke open. Something desperate and raw that I had been holding back since I saw her name on my phone. But then he added, "But the next 24 hours are critical." And the relief twisted into something sharper, something that refused to settle. I nodded even though I was not sure what I was agreeing to, my mind already racing ahead, already calculating outcomes, risks, solutions, like I could negotiate with time the way I did with everything else. "Can I see her?" I asked, and my voice sounded unfamiliar, lower, stripped of the certainty I usually carried without thinking. He hesitated, just for a fraction of a second, but I caught it. I always caught hesitation. It was how I built my entire world, and that small pause told me more than his words did. "Briefly," he said, stepping aside, and suddenly the door I had been staring at felt heavier than anything I had ever tried to move. I pushed it open slowly, like rushing would somehow make things worse. And the room beyond was quiet in a way that did not feel peaceful, machines humming softly, lights too bright, everything clean and controlled except for the way my chest refused to settle. Emily lay there, smaller than I remembered, like the life had been drained out of the space she used to fill so easily, her hand resting beside her, pale against the white sheet, and I stopped a few feet away because I did not trust myself to get closer without breaking something else. This was not how I was supposed to see her. Not like this. Not after a call I ignored. I took a step forward anyway, slow, careful, like she might disappear if I moved too fast, and when I finally reached her side, my hand hovered above hers, not touching yet, because I did not know if I had the right anymore. 12 calls. 12 chances. And now I was here, too late to answer, too early to be forgiven, standing beside the only person who ever asked me for something simple and still believed I would give it to her. I lowered my hand gently until it rested against hers, and the contact was real, warm, fragile, and it hit me all at once that everything I had built meant nothing in this room if I could not keep this one promise alive. Her fingers did not move when I touched them, but they were warm, and that warmth felt like the only proof I had left that I had not lost everything yet, that there was still something here I could reach if I did not let go again. I pulled a chair closer without making noise, the legs scraping softly against the floor, and sat beside her like I belonged there, even though every part of me knew I had not earned that place tonight. The machines beside her kept a steady rhythm, quiet and controlled, doing what I should have done, staying present, responding when it mattered, never missing a signal. I watched her face, the small details I had memorized over years without realizing it, the way her brows softened when she was at peace, the faint line near her lips that only appeared when she worried about something she did not want to say out loud. That line was there now, even in sleep, even in silence, like her body remembered what her voice had tried to hide. I tightened my hand around hers slightly, careful not to disturb anything, and leaned forward just enough to lower my voice, even though she could not hear me. Or maybe she could. I did not know anymore. "I am here," I said quietly, The words feeling heavier than they should have, because being here now did not erase the fact that I was not there when she needed me. The room did not respond. The machines did not change. Nothing shifted except the weight inside my chest pressing harder with every second I sat there. My phone buzzed in my pocket, sharp and out of place, and for a moment I froze, the sound cutting through everything like a test. I did not want to fail again. I stared at the outline of it beneath the fabric, feeling the vibration against my leg, remembering how easily I had ignored it before, how simple it had been to silence something important. This time, I reached for it immediately. No hesitation. No delay. The screen lit up, and for a second my heart stopped, because I expected to see her name again, expected some impossible second chance, but it was not Emily. It was one of my men, his name flashing with urgency I would have responded to without question any other night. I declined the call. The decision came faster than thought, faster than instinct, like something inside me had finally realigned to where it should have been all along. The phone buzzed again, insistent, persistent, just like hers had been, and I turned it off completely, the screen going dark in my hand as I set it down on the table beside her bed. Silence returned, but this time it felt different, not empty, not careless, but chosen, intentional, like I was finally giving this moment the attention it had been asking for all along. I looked back at her, at the rise and fall of her breathing, at the stillness that did not feel permanent yet, and I realized something I had been avoiding since I stepped into this hospital, something simple and impossible at the same time. Power had never asked me to choose. It had always taken. Tonight was the first time I understood what it meant to give something up willingly, to stay when everything else demanded I leave, to answer without being called. I adjusted my grip on her hand slightly, more certain now, more present, and leaned closer, my voice barely above a whisper. I will not miss another call. The promise hung in the air, fragile and unproven, and for the first time in years, I knew it was not something I could enforce, not something I could control. It was something I had to become. Time stopped meaning anything after that, not in the dramatic way people describe in stories, but in something quieter, heavier, like every second stretched just enough to make you feel it passing, to remind you that you could not skip ahead to the part where everything was okay. I stayed beside her, counting the rhythm of her breathing without realizing I was doing it, matching my own to hers like it might keep her anchored here, like it might make up for all the moments I had been somewhere else when I should have been beside her. The lights in the room never changed, always the same steady brightness, and I realized hospitals did that on purpose, removed the sense of day and night, so you could not tell how long you had been waiting, how long you had been hoping. A nurse came in quietly, checking monitors, adjusting something I did not understand, her movements efficient, practiced, and she glanced at me once, just once, like she was measuring something, not my suit, not my presence, but whether I belonged here now, or if I was just another man trying to stand in a place he had abandoned too easily. I did not look away. Not this time. My phone stayed dark on the table, silent by choice, and every time my mind tried to drift back to the world outside this room, to the unfinished deals, the unanswered messages, the people waiting for direction, I pulled it back, forced it to stay here, with her, where it should have been all along. I shifted slightly in the chair, my back stiff, my shoulders tight from hours of not moving, but I did not let go of her hand, not even for a second, because letting go felt too much like repeating the same mistake in a different form. You always said I was good at showing up when it mattered. I murmured, my voice low, almost lost beneath the steady hum of the machines, and the words felt wrong even as I said them, because tonight proved the opposite in a way I could not ignore or rewrite. I glanced at her face again, searching for something, any small sign, a movement, a change, anything that told me she was closer to coming back than she was to slipping further away, but she remained still, peaceful in a way that did not feel like rest, more like distance, like she was somewhere I could not follow no matter how much power I held outside these walls. The doctor's words echoed in my head, 24 hours, a number that sounded simple until you realized how many seconds it contained, how many chances there were for things to go wrong, for things to change in ways you could not control. Control. That word had defined me for years, shaped every decision, every move, every outcome, and sitting here I finally understood how limited it really was, How useless it became when the only thing you wanted could not be negotiated, bought, or forced into place. I leaned back slightly, still holding her hand, and let out a slow breath I had been holding for longer than I could remember, my eyes never leaving her face, because if she opened them, even for a second, I needed to be the first thing she saw, not because I deserved it, but because I owed her that much, at least. And as the seconds kept passing, steady and unforgiving, one thought stayed with me, louder than everything else, clearer than any plan I had ever made. I was not afraid of losing everything I built. I was afraid that even if she woke up, she might not reach for me again. It was sometime between one steady breath and the next that I noticed it, not a dramatic movement, not something that would have caught anyone else's attention, just a slight shift beneath my fingers, so small I almost thought I imagined it, like my mind was trying to create hope where there was none. I froze instantly, my grip tightening just enough to confirm it was real, and then it happened again, a faint response, a whisper of movement against my hand that made everything inside me stop and restart at the same time. "Emily," I said softly, leaning forward without thinking, my voice lower, closer, like distance might make it disappear, like I had to meet her halfway if she was trying to come back. Her eyelids did not open, not yet, but there was something different now. Something subtle in the way her breathing shifted, less distant, more present, and I held on to that change like it was the only thing anchoring me to this moment. "I am here," I repeated, not louder, not desperate, just steady, because if she could hear anything, I wanted it to be that, not the chaos I had allowed to come between us, not the silence I had chosen when she needed my voice the most. The machines continued their quiet rhythm, unchanged, but to me everything felt louder, sharper, like the world had narrowed down to this one point where her hand rested in mine, and every second carried weight I could not ignore. I watched her face closely, searching for more, another sign, another movement, anything that told me this was not just a single moment that would fade as quickly as it came. And then her fingers shifted again, just slightly, pressing back this time, not strong, not certain, but enough to make my chest tighten in a way I had never felt before. Relief did not come the way I expected it to, not as something clean or simple, but as something complicated, layered with everything I had done wrong, everything I had failed to do, everything I could not undo no matter how tightly I held on now. I lowered my head slightly, my forehead almost touching the back of her hand, careful, controlled, like I was afraid even that small movement might take something away. "You do not have to do this alone," I murmured, the words meant for her, but echoing back at me in a way that made them feel like a confession instead of a promise. A sound behind me broke the moment, the soft opening of the door, footsteps approaching, and I did not look away from her, not immediately, not until I felt a presence beside me that waited instead of interrupting. "That is a good sign," the doctor said quietly, his tone measured but carrying something close to relief, and I nodded once, still focused on her, still holding on to the small response like it was everything. "It means she is responsive," he continued, and I let those words settle slowly, not trusting them right away, not allowing myself to believe too much too soon, because I had already learned how quickly things could shift when you assumed there was more time. "Will she wake up?" I asked, my voice steady but carrying something beneath it I could not fully control, and there was that hesitation again, brief but present, the same pause that told me the truth was never simple. "We hope so," he said, and hope was not a guarantee, not something I could rely on the way I relied on numbers and outcomes and decisions, but it was more than I had a few hours ago. I nodded again, slower this time, and turned my attention fully back to her, to the warmth of her hand, to the faint pressure of her fingers against mine, and for the first time since I stepped into this hospital, I allowed myself to believe something I had been too afraid to consider before. She was still here, and this time, I was not going anywhere. Her fingers did not slip away this time, and that small, fragile pressure against my hand became the center of everything, more important than the machines, more important than the doctor still standing somewhere behind me, more important than the world I had left outside this room, and I realized I was holding my breath again, waiting for more, needing more, like one sign was not enough to make up for everything I had almost lost. "Emily," I said again, softer now, closer, my voice carrying something it had never carried before, not command, not certainty, just presence, just the truth of me being here without anything else attached to it. Her lashes trembled slightly, barely noticeable, but I saw it. I caught it the way I had trained myself to catch every detail that mattered. Except this time it was not about control, it was about hope, and that difference felt unfamiliar, unsteady, like learning something new too late. Slowly, carefully, her eyes opened, not fully, not all at once, just enough to let light in, just enough to let me see that she was coming back, and the moment our eyes met, everything inside me shifted in a way I could not explain or contain. There was no relief in her gaze, no immediate recognition that softened the distance between us. Just awareness, quiet and measured, like she was trying to understand where she was, who I was, and why I was sitting here, holding her hand like I had never let go. "You are here," she whispered, her voice rough, barely there, and the words should have been simple, just an observation, but the way she said them carried something else, something heavier, something that settled between us before I could answer. I nodded once, because anything more felt like too much, like I did not deserve to fill the space with explanations she did not ask for yet. "I am here," I repeated, the same words as before, but now they felt different. Now they were being heard. Now they had to mean something beyond the moment. Her gaze did not soften. It stayed on me, steady, searching, like she was looking for something she was not sure she would find, and then her eyes shifted slightly, moving past me, taking in the room, the machines, the unfamiliar surroundings, and I saw the realization settle in slowly, piece by piece. "The baby," she whispered, the words coming quicker this time, more urgent, and I felt her fingers tighten just enough to make my chest ache. "The baby is alive," I said immediately, no hesitation, no delay, because this was the one answer I could give her without doubt, without uncertainty, and I watched as her eyes closed briefly, relief passing through her face in a way that made everything else feel secondary for just a second. When she opened them again, they returned to me, and that distance was still there, unchanged, untouched by the answer I gave. "I called you," she said, and there was no accusation in her voice, no anger, just a statement, simple and undeniable, and somehow that made it worse, made it heavier, made it impossible to hide behind anything I had used before. My throat tightened, and for the first time since I walked into this room, I did not have control over the silence that followed, because this was not a negotiation, not something I could redirect or reshape. "I know," I said finally, the words quiet, insufficient, and she held my gaze for a moment longer, long enough for me to see the shift, the subtle change that told me something had already been decided inside her while I was somewhere else choosing not to answer. Her fingers loosened slightly in my hand. Not pulling away, not yet, but not holding on the same way either, and that small difference felt sharper than anything else tonight, because it was not about what I had almost lost, it was about what I might not get back. She did not pull her hand away completely, but she did not hold on the same way either, and that difference settled between us heavier than anything she could have said out loud, because it was quiet, controlled, and impossible to argue with. I felt it in the space between our fingers, in the way her grip loosened just enough to remind me that being here now did not erase where I had been when it mattered. I did not try to tighten my hold, did not try to force something back into place that had already shifted, because for the first time I understood that some things could not be taken, not even by me. "I should have answered," I said, the words coming slower than they should have, like I had to push them past everything I usually relied on to avoid saying them at all. She watched me quietly, her expression steady, not cold, not distant in a way that shut me out completely, but different, like she was listening without expecting anything from me anymore. "You always answer," she said softly, and there was no accusation in it, just a statement of fact, one that carried more weight than anger ever could, because it reminded me of the version of myself she had believed in, the one I had let slip without noticing. I swallowed, the truth sitting heavy in my chest, refusing to be reshaped into something easier. "Not this time," I admitted, and the words felt like they belonged to someone else, someone who had to live with what they had done instead of controlling how it was seen. Her gaze shifted slightly, not away from me, but inward, like she was replaying something I had not been there for, something I could not change no matter how much I wanted to. "I thought," she started, then paused, her breath catching just enough to make me lean forward instinctively. Even though I did not interrupt, did not fill the silence this time. I thought if I just kept calling, you would pick up, she finished, and that simple belief, that quiet certainty she had held on to while everything around her was falling apart, hit harder than anything else tonight. I closed my eyes for a second, not to escape it, but to let it settle fully, to stop myself from reaching for excuses that did not matter anymore. I heard it, I said quietly, opening my eyes again, meeting hers without looking away, because this time I was not going to hide behind anything. Every call. I saw your name. The admission hung there, heavier than anything I had said so far, because it stripped away the last layer of distance I could have used to protect myself. Her fingers stilled completely in mine, and for a moment the room felt too quiet, like even the machines had softened their rhythm to make space for what had just been said. And you still did not answer, she said. Not as a question, not needing confirmation, just placing the truth exactly where it belonged. I nodded once, because anything else would have been dishonest, and she held my gaze for a long second before looking down at our hands, at the way they were still connected but no longer certain. I was scared, she said, her voice lower now, softer in a way that made it harder to hear, because it was not directed at me as much as it was something she was acknowledging for herself. I was alone. The words settled into the space between us, final in a way that did not need to be repeated, and I felt something inside me shift again, not sharp this time, not sudden, but steady and undeniable, like a realization that would not fade once it arrived. I could stand here now, I could stay, I could promise everything I had not given before, but none of it changed the fact that when she needed me the most, I was not there, and that absence was something I could not undo, only live with, only try to earn my way back from, if she ever decided to let me. She did not say anything after that, and the silence that followed felt different from before, not uncertain, not fragile, but settled, like something had already been understood between us without needing to be repeated. I watched her carefully, searching for anything that might tell me what she was thinking, but her gaze had shifted away again, not avoiding me, just no longer centered on me, like I was no longer the only thing that mattered in her world the way she had once been in mine, without me realizing it. The machines continued their steady rhythm, unchanged, consistent, reliable in a way I had failed to be, and I found myself focusing on that sound, on the quiet assurance that something was still holding everything together even when I had not. You should rest, I said after a moment, the words coming out softer than I expected, not because I wanted to end the conversation, but because I did not know how to continue it without making things worse, without reaching for something she had not offered me yet. She nodded slightly, her movements small, controlled, like she was conserving energy for something more important than this moment, and I realized then that I was not at the center of her focus anymore, not the way I had assumed I would be once she woke up. Are you going to stay? She asked quietly, her eyes still not fully on me, and the question should have been simple, but it carried something deeper, something that reached past this room, past this moment, into everything that had led us here. Yes, I answered immediately, no hesitation, because this was the one thing I could be certain about now, the one thing I would not fail again. She nodded again, but there was no relief in it, no visible shift that told me my answer had changed anything, and that was when I understood that staying now was expected, not exceptional, not something that repaired what had already been broken. For how long? She asked, and that question landed differently, sharper, because it was not about tonight, not about the next few hours. It was about something I had never truly answered before, something I had always assumed instead of proving. I held her gaze this time, not looking away, not deflecting, because there was no way to avoid what she was really asking. As long as you need me, I said, and even as the words left my mouth, I knew they were not enough, not yet, because they sounded like a promise I could shape later, something flexible, something that still allowed me control. Her eyes searched mine for a second, just long enough to measure that answer, to weigh it against everything that had already happened, and then she looked away again, the distance returning in a way that felt more defined this time, more intentional. I needed you earlier, she said softly, and there was no anger in it, no raised voice, just the truth placed exactly where it belonged, unmovable, undeniable. My chest tightened, but I did not look away, did not try to soften it, because this was not something that could be adjusted or reframed. I know, I replied, the words quiet, steady, carrying the weight they deserved without trying to reduce it. She closed her eyes slowly, not shutting me out completely, just stepping back from the conversation, from me, from everything that had been said, and I remained there beside her, still holding her hand, feeling the space between us more clearly than I ever had before. It was not the kind of distance I could close with a decision or a command. It was something I had to wait through, something I had to earn my way back across, if she ever chose to let me. And for the first time, I understood that staying was not the same as being chosen.